Welcome to Advisory Insights Podcast, brought to you by Oberman Law Firm, a leading law firm serving clients across multiple industries and sectors on a local, regional, and national basis. And now, here's your host, Stuart Oberman.
Welcome, everyone, to Oberman Law Firm Podcast. Stuart Oberman here, your host. And today I got the guy in the healthcare industry where we're going to talk about some serious financial matters. So I want to introduce Mike White. Mike is with Clifton, Larson, and Allen, which is an amazing accounting firm. And they do a lot of stuff in the healthcare space. So I'm very privileged to have Mike on today. And some of his accolades, I mean, just what he talks about is amazing. I mean, we're talking about a speech at the American Society of Retinal Specialists. He does consulting work, budgeting, financing, business development, strategic planning, buy, sell side, med spas, aesthetic groups, DSOs, MSOs. I mean, where do I stop here? I mean, it's like a ticker tape parade. So we are just we are grateful to have you on, and I know you do a lot in the optometry space, dental space, but so many of these things can, no matter, it's top of mind for really everything in the healthcare space and businesses. So, man, I really want to drill down on what you guys see, because you see a lot, you know a lot, and I'm just privileged to have you on with us today. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for the great introduction. And I love this stuff, as you and I have chatted about before. I have the privilege of doing about 40 to 50 of these a year, and education's passion for me, and I love teaching. I love learning, of course, but I want to get that messaging out, and that's where you and I, bonded and shared over so much of this. So excited to be here, and hopefully what we say today adds a little bit for some folks here.
Now, I want to talk about KPIs, right? Because I want to learn something from you, right? Right. I want to learn something on this podcast. So, KPIs. I don't think business owners, whether it's healthcare or whatever, I don't think they understand KPIs.
They don't.
But how important that is, especially on valuations and growth, and everyone wants a scale in today's world. So, tell me what, I know you see a lot. Tell me what you think maybe are the top KPIs that our guys need to know about, no matter what industry you're in.
And it really is. And we'll start at the top. And I love this topic so much. And I tell people, I feel like I've been doing the same presentation for 15, 20 years because the messaging is so important and it hasn't changed. Some of our stuff is just about fundamentals. A lot of CPAs, when they have this conversation, we work through all this stuff. It's like, oh, I need a P&L and I need a balance sheet. But if you and I are sitting down with our client, our customer, our doctor or provider, it gets down to, okay, you said you did 100,000 last month and you want to do 120 this month. How are you going to get there? Is there capacity in your schedule? Is it a revenue per patient? Do you need to increase your fees? In the optometry space, is it a pricing mechanism? Do we need to run a sale campaign? And then, of course, you get into margins and all that. But I love the top KPIs, production per patient or production per FTE per day, number of patients seen, new to active patients, if you will, because we have to look at, is our marketing campaign working? Is it a patient throughput? Of course, we all talk about, and we'll get into the private equity space and the consolidation and all that, and what EBITDA is.
That's a 6-day conversation, right?
It's a 6-day. Well, yeah. When you and I were talking about topics, I'm like, where do you want to start? But there are those KPIs that are very practice centric. So what we try to do is meld the story from the practice management system to the story from the P&Ls and the balance sheets. What I can't stress enough to people: if the balance sheet isn't accurate, the P&L can't be. And why I say that is so often when somebody says, hey, let me see your financial statements, I get a P&L, maybe, and it's usually 90 days old. And maybe I get a tax return. It's like, great. What about the balance sheet? What about, your practice management reports? What about the other things that you as a business owner think about? And that's where we get into the granularity of trying to make a difference.
So you just hit on a button here so you get stuff that's 90 days old, which is already 1 quarter old. I mean, should the doctors be saying real-time data within days and not quarters?
Yes. And in the age of technology and AI and all the fun stuff, which is a whole nother 6 month conversation, there's KPIs. So we talk about KPI cadence, right? There's daily KPIs, weekly, and of course, monthly, if you will. The daily KPIs are that patient throughput. What's going on the schedule today at the beginning of the day, and what happened through the day? Did schedule fall apart? Did everything that we thought was going to happen? Did we fill it up? Weekly, we follow those same mindsets, but we're starting to think more operationally. Are the things that we did in that marketing campaign translating through our practice? So often I meet with a provider, they run a promotion or they run a big ad campaign, and the front desk who's taking the phone calls doesn't even know about it. So they're taking conversations and taking calls. Yeah, I'm calling in to schedule such and such appointment, or I'm calling in for such and such a promotion. And you have the front desk scrambling. So, and then there's the monthly where we pull it all together. And you don't always, yeah, 90 days old is bad, but even if you're looking at a month in arrears, how does that impact the next 12 months? I want people to look at trailing 12 months, year over year comparison, and budget to actual. And we all should be setting a budget each year.
Are you saying that no matter really what business you're in, healthcare, whatever it is, that these guys should be reviewing this stuff almost weekly?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if we
Wow.
can't make decisions, right? If we're looking to affect change, we go back to our $100,000 example. If we're in that month saying, all right, we're doing 120 and the whole team's aligned on it, and we look here on the 27th and we're at 95 or we're at 85 or whatever it may be, what are we doing? We can't wait for 3 months to see how did we do on hitting that goal, because now we just missed the next 3 months of setting goals. It's we are affecting change actively throughout the month.
So
Now, I'm going to caveat all
yeah,
of that
I
real
was, I
quick.
was, I was going to
Yeah, go
follow up
ahead.
with that
Yeah.
one.
Well, I'm going to caveat all of that to say what we don't want. And you're a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur. It's what we don't want is a whack-a-mole situation. And that happens all the time where we have fire drills we're trying to put out. So it's still steadfast on, hey, this is the KPI that we're focused on for the next 90 days. And say we're doing production per patient, we're going to get our arms around it, we're going to measure it, we're going to see what's going on within our practice. Well, if something happens over here, it's not like, oh, well, now we need to look at new patients to active patients. No, this is our KPI. We'll put that one to the side, we'll come back to it. You still want to track it, but we can't affect change if we're focused on this one's going to pop up a little bit. There's got to be some cadence to it.
So it's so we run into a lot of these cases, and you guys probably do too, where these practices are heavy in staff, way heavy in staff.
Yes, very
So how
heavy.
do you equate the labor costs, right,
Yeah,
with that with collections? How do you reconcile that, or just
yeah.
it's an overall strategic thing, like you're running a quarter behind, so you have no idea what your labor costs are.
Well, and we've all managed folks, right? I think the biggest thing is in this law of efficiency being gained, but also in this law of every employee wants to do their best in a shop. When we have these new startup practices or new startup businesses in general, and those first 60, 90 days, 120 days where they're building that book of business, or even 9, 12 months out, they're staffing based on what's happening. Well, those staff are building their own habits. And if you tell somebody they're full time, they're going to fill 40 hours a week full time with things because they want to be valuable for the practice. Fast forward 12 to 18 months, are they still doing things we don't need them to do? And what we see is practice owners are like, well, I need to hire somebody else because they're busy. Well, maybe they are, but are they doing things that we don't need them doing anymore? We have technology that can eliminate that problem, or create those efficiencies. So we always do that status check each year of saying, what are we working on? What are the problems? We want engagement from the team.
So with those KPIs, is that some of the biggest reasons that you outlined as why practices are flat?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, as we all know, but but we all can do what we can do. So if we think about growth trajectory, and again, we jump ahead a little bit to why is private equity in healthcare? It's because they're seeing that doctors are not running businesses like business people. They're not saying one is right or wrong. Neither of you or and I
Yep.
are saying that, but there's some thought process to, okay, what are we doing or what are they doing? And what I want is every individual practitioner that wants to be individual, to be steadfast in their individuality, but do the same things that the business owners are doing. Look at their numbers, negotiate with their vendors, understand the inefficiencies within their practice. Look for those tools that automate things going forward, understand and make decisions on their rent, their utilization, expansion, all of those things that help them make that decision.
What one thing, and we have dashboards going everywhere,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
just
same.
dashboards and dashboards and dashboards, right? It's like you sort of drown in dashboards. And one of the things that you mentioned and talk about is owners should not drown in dashboards,
Yeah.
and why dashboards fail, and what makes the KPI actionable in relation to the dashboards, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you measure that daily, weekly, hourly? Tell me about why you see that the practice owners fail regarding these dashboards.
Yeah. Man, it comes down to accountability. And you mentioned in that statement there, ownership. What we find so often is, let's say we pick those top 5 KPIs that we love, that are meaningful to us, that we want to focus on. We're going to focus on one for the next quarter, but who owns it? So if we're sitting down, you and I are sitting down with our team and having that conversation, and we didn't hit our production goals, or we didn't hit our patient count throughput, well, why not? Who owns that answer? If somebody's not trying to make sure we hit those goals, accountability is where it fails. There are a lot of beautiful dashboards. We put together a lot of dashboards, but if there isn't
Oh,
somebody,
we got dashboards on top of
oh
dashboards.
yeah, I mean, of course, in the age of, again, technology and automation, and all these softwares are trying to create these dashboards, they're very pretty. But if all they're doing is putting out a pretty picture or a pretty graph or a representation of what's happening, what action are we taking with that dashboard? So I tell people, let's get good data. And even if they don't want to spend money on a dashboard, okay, open up Excel month by month, drop in these every single month, these numbers. And I mean, these are smart people. Look at the trends. Is there something there that looks off to you? And that's where we start with. Let's just start at 30,000 feet as we start realizing what's happening in all this data. And Sally Jane or Jim Bob or whomever is going to own
Yeah. Yep.
marketing and new patients and our vendor relations. Great, let's empower them to do it.
So why do you see, right? So getting back to the levers and the KPI. So why do you see that net collections, like per provider, is dropping?
Yeah,
So what do you guys see on your end? Because that's critical. I mean, if you got
incredibly.
collections dropping per provider, something's not right, or they're not measuring, or something. What do you guys
Yeah.
see on the financial side?
Well, it's obviously, there's a lot of stuff. You always have insurance compression, which is awful, right? There's only so much that can be done, but what we so often find is a lot of our providers are just accepting. If they get rate cuts, they're just accepting it. They're not going back. They're not fighting it. They're thinking, oh, that's the big insurance company. There's not much I can do. They're not evaluating whether, do I stay in network with this insurance provider? Do I market to a different insurance provider?
Yep.
And of course, we have to look at the efficiencies or inefficiencies in their day and their utilization. A lot of things we find when, again, we go back to these days is, if we get somebody new at the front desk and they don't really know how to maximize and double book the calendar or triple book the calendar, there's inefficiency in schedule. Or we see where, hey, this doctor, they can get in and out with a patient, give them great clinical care, and be in and out in 15, 20 minutes, while an assistant or a hygienist is prepping the next room, or working through the next patient to onboard them. They could see 3 patients in an hour, as opposed to another provider that's trying to control every aspect, be there through the entire patient experience, and they're seeing 1 or 2 patients.
No,
So you
there's
have that
yeah,
balance. Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead. No, finish that comment.
Yeah, no, you absolutely have that balance in saying, okay, what is, you can't, you and I are lay folks. We can't dictate to doctors of how they should
Yeah.
do clinical care. We can make them aware of what best practices are, and we can make them aware of, especially when you're in a group, here's what your peers are doing. Here's what we're seeing as industry trends. And when I'm meeting with folks, and I'll just make one more statement, when I'm meeting with folks, we try to get down to the geographic region, so I can talk to a provider in California and say, yeah, your staff costs in a dental practice should be 52 to 53%. That same provider in Illinois or North Dakota is probably 48 to 49%. fully loaded. It really gets down to those nuances because of reimbursement compression and of course all the other aspects of cost and space and all the fun stuff.
So now I want to see, I want you to jump into the legal side for a second, right? So
Oh, okay.
I want to know what problem, legal problems you see, because you guys are on the front line. You see it before we do regarding,
Oh my
KPI
gosh.
problems, regarding disputes, partner claims, compensation structures. What do you see and how to avoid that on the financial side?
Man, I will tell you, and I'm sure you're seeing, and I know you are, we talked about it. This year has been one for partner disputes.
Oh,
Anytime, anytime, look, anytime the world and the economy change a little bit, there's infighting, right? If there's not structure to the business, you start pointing fingers. And our valuation litigation team is probably dealing with a new case a week right now in the healthcare space that I know of, beyond the other 9,000 folks at CLA. So it really is an interesting time. But back to KPIs. If there's one expectation where one provider, and we'll pick ourselves, we'll say the lawyer, you have
hey,
one
hey,
other
hey, hey,
partner
hey, hey.
that
Whoa, whoa,
you
whoa,
have
whoa,
one
whoa.
other partner that's doing 30% of the billing, and you're doing 70% of the billing, and you're bringing
Yep.
in all the new customers and all that. At some point, there's got to be a conversation to say, hey, started noticing this trend. I'm carrying the weight. What's going on? Or one person's responsible for more, and we see that a lot where it's the partner in charge or whatever it may be, and they're doing everything. They're managing HR, they're managing the accounting relationship, the vendor, and the other providers just showing up to do their job. There's those
Yeah.
conversations that you got to have early. Have the arguments, have the discussions, have the hard conversations early of what are we expecting from each other for partners, and I continue to have those.
I want to jump into the optometry area and
Okay.
ophthalmology area a little bit. So I know you're very, very big in that, and it's an amazing and booming area. So
It
talk to
is.
me about, sort of type of splits where you got your culture and exams per day, and you got your remakes, you got your contacts lens annual supply chain issues. Then you've got, your retention and everyone's moving everywhere and recalls. So what do you see on the optometry and even ophthalmology side as far as those problems go?
I mean, all the above. And of course, you get into stale inventory and you get into the changing dynamics of people's behaviors and, new trends and new fashion. And of course, dated practices, meaning, I grew up in an optometry practice. My mother was a nurse for 29 years in the space. And I went to the clinic a lot, and she was with the same provider for the whole time. But I went to the clinic a
Now
lot
that
and
I
just,
didn't know. That's pretty. So you
yeah.
got firsthand knowledge of this stuff.
Yeah,
That's
no, it was fun, but I will tell you, I had been up to that practice, and again, she's retired 6 years ago. The practice still looks the same.
wow,
Yeah, so
wow.
you do have a lot of those conversations, if you will, where okay, we've got to continue on their trend, we got to be competitive. I take this,
Wow.
especially in the optometry space, was you're dealing with inventory, you're dealing with management of cost of goods sold and retail, and of course on the
Tariffs,
oh my
tariffs.
gosh, a whole new world right now. And we have a tariff consultant that we work with quite a bit who's a dear friend of mine, and she is beyond
Wow.
busy, as you can imagine. But yeah, how are you passing those tariff costs along? How are you passing the inventory that you already have? Do you throw a tariff on top of that to put a buffer in place? Do you not? Do you work through it? Do you change your supplier? A lot of these manufacturers are now trying to take, if they're, in Asia or Europe where it's maybe a little higher tariff, they're trying to put it through Mexico and bring it up. So maybe it's a little different, or, through Virgin Islands. So there's a lot
Did
of
I hear a
things that are going
stat
on.
that 95% of all contact lenses are made in China?
Yeah,
It did,
that's what I've heard as
that
well. I've
that's
heard
I
that as
think
well. I haven't
yeah.
gone to the shop and seen it, but I heard that as well.
Can you call your mom while we're on the podcast here?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, but no, when you look at all of these factors coming into it, you have rising staffing costs, you have insurance compression, you have the rise of private equity. And again, we're not here to say good or bad or whatnot, but there is movement there. We have insurance agencies now buying medical practice. Walmart, has been in the optometry space
Yep.
forever. Well, now they want to get into dental and physician as of a couple years ago. Amazon's doing the same. So you have real competition. So when you're looking inward as a practice, what are you doing to differentiate yourself and provide that care and, stay cutting edge of the trends? And
So
data is going to
it's
help you make those decisions.
so when people listening, they're going to say, "Hey, look, Stuart and Mike, man, what do I
What am I
need to
supposed to do?
what the hell am I supposed to do, right? What am I supposed to do in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what are they supposed to do in 1 week? What are they
Love
supposed
it.
to do in week two to give them sort of like a runway of like, oh gosh, thanks
Yeah.
for this is great, but now what do I do, right? I can
Yeah.
only call Mike so many times and he's going to hang up on me, right?
It is such a important question. So I leave every presentation I do, one with a call to action, but two, it's usually the same. Let's level set. Here we are, March 27th, March whatever, when this gets publicized. We're at the end of March, early April. Tax returns should be done, if not about done. You should have year-end closed financials, I hope, and you should have already seen February, maybe even March financials by this point. But you need to see, okay, let me just put them all on a piece of paper. Let me just spread out, do a 12-month trend report, run a year-over-year comparison. I always tell people, let's just get a base foundation of where we are today. When you pull, let's say you pull all of 2025, maybe you look at 2024. We saw some softness in healthcare in 2025, especially in those tertiary retail industry, med spa, med aesthetics,
Yep.
surgery.
Oh,
We saw softness. People are starting to get compressed on credit card debt being at the highest level all time, mortgages being all time high. I can go all down these chains
yeah.
of just statistics that are impacting the world of healthcare.
Wow.
But I want them to just understand, where are we today? And then we have 9 months left of the year. What do we want to accomplish the rest of this year? What's our goal? And I think the hardest conversation all of us have as leader is, who is that one person we're relying on, and who can I bring along to this conversation?
And then, so, and I think maybe, and sort of tell me if I'm wrong, is maybe pick the
Pick the
key
one.
KPIs you want to take a look at,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Not 70, but take maybe 3 to 5,
Yep.
figure and sort of figure out formula wise where you're going, right?
Yeah.
And then sort of, like you said earlier,
And where
assign
you've been.
ownership to where that's going, especially
Where
with
you've been.
partnership.
Yeah. Absolutely. And where you've been. So if we pick the three KPIs, let's say it's production per day, we're in per FTE or per provider, if you will. Maybe it's, total patients seen every single month, because we want to measure cyclicality. What are those good and bad months of the year? And maybe it's schedule utilization, meaning we're open for 40 hours a week. How much of those 40 hours are we having chair time? And maybe
It's
those are our first three.
what then you said a great thing is basically what's your baseline?
Yep.
What's your baseline right now?
Mhm.
If you even know your first quarter numbers,
Yeah. Yep.
which extensions, right? What would you guys do without tax return extensions, right? You guys would be bored, right?
Yeah.
And
And
then
see, what you didn't
targets.
even call out, by the way, Stuart, is I have my friendly bronze statues over here, all wearing glasses, by the way.
The oversight committee, right? The
Yeah,
oversight.
oversight committee, my optometry committee right here. And
A lot of our clients were like deer in the headlights, right? You
yes, absolutely.
got it
Absolutely.
all.
Well, it's always about staging the laptop. So it's not, I don't look like I have antlers coming out of my head. So
Well, is there, I mean, it's just been amazing, this top of mind stuff that our doctors just need to look at. And I always say, look, if they take away one thing, it's success,
it's a great
right?
day. Yeah.
So is there anything you want to add sort of in closing, like, hey, let's take a look at this, or you know what, here's what we
Yeah.
need to do. And that one little nugget, although you
Well,
got 30 minutes of nuggets, no doubt.
no, no, look, I appreciate it. And I would, I'm going to throw one question back at you here at the end. But one of the things I would say is, similar to what we were talking about, is level set and see where you are. I would imagine you're having the same conversations, because one of the questions earlier was that legal interaction to accounting. So often we see all the great work that you do and law firms do, we don't see it implementing in the documents. Service agreements aren't being done, management fees aren't being drafted. So what are you telling
Yeah.
clients at the same point each year, right now, that they should be doing?
It's interesting. So I just did a bunch of reels, right? So for
Yeah,
today, right? This in
yeah.
my spare time. It was all business continuity. It was all
Hmm.
succession planning.
Succession
It
planning.
was all, agreements in place, shareholders agreements, operating agreements, buy sell
Yeah.
agreements, What
Yeah.
happens if you become disabled? Where are you at financially with all your information? Because it all goes back to if you're not structured in legal,
Yeah.
you're not structured in accounting, you got nowhere to go. You got nowhere to go. So I think we see a mess. We're seeing a
Yeah.
lot of partnership disputes, like you said before, a
Yep.
lot. And
Yeah.
they're not papered. They're not papered. I got a call this afternoon with a doctor. We're looking at her non-compete. The non-compete says three different things in one paragraph.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, and it's like, which one do we pick? You pick one that's going to be most of damage to you. That's
Yeah.
you always, so those kind of things. So it's great information. We see the same thing.
Yeah.
They're not internally correct, and you see it on the
Yeah.
financial side, and it's all one big happy family.
It is. And that's why these conversations are so important. And I'm thankful that you put it on as your team. And so I always say, build your team. Your lawyers, your CPAs, your accountants, your insurance, your wealth advisors, we all need to be talking because that is your advisory team. I meet with mine every quarter for me and my wife, and we make sure we go over things and we talk
So
through
you take your
things.
own
And
medicine, in other words.
we do, you have to. But I think it's so important. If your team doesn't know each other, maybe that's the second thing you do after you level set.
Yeah.
Introduce your attorney to your CPA. Have your conversation. Introduce your CPA to your attorney. Those are the things that we have to really look at.
Mike, thank you very much for what you do. I mean, the information is amazing. I know I learned a lot, right? We talk about dashboards, KPIs, the market, what are we doing? So you guys are an absolute industry leader. And then I know that Clifton, Larson, and Allen is a leader in what they do. So they are lucky to have you on board. So my friend,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. And we look forward to definitely putting this out to our clients. And it's amazing
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it and appreciate the conversation so much.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks.